On behalf of the Board of Directors of the Sheth Foundation, I'm delighted to welcome you to this special Sheth Medal event. The Sheth Foundation Medal is a biannual award given to marketers for exceptional contributions. It is awarded to recognize a marketing thought leader who has made enduring and transformational contributions to academic scholarship, marketing practice, and society. Dr. David Aaker is truly a worthy recipient. He is especially remarkable because he has been a thought leader on branding for both marketing academics and practitioners around the world. If you're attending today's event, you probably already know about Dave's amazing contributions. However, I know you'll enjoy hearing from his colleagues, seeing him receive the award, and listening to his remarks. Congratulations, Dave.
David, Mike, what a wonderful news. Very well-deserved recognition. I think you epitomize what is the real essence of being a scholar, and that is being an academic entrepreneur. I think we need more people like you who not only create world-class scholarship in terms of fundamentally defining the knowledge, but practice that went on with Frank Boss, this award, who will have taken the customer perspective and transformed for this industry when they came out. We gave first two awards to some colleagues from IBM for the transformation from the Ratan Tata in terms of creating a huge conglomerate under his leadership. But then the board decided that the award actually more meaningful, good set of people. So the award shifted to looking at academics who have done significant things in practice. And that one was Phil Kotler, who should be on the call. So Phil is. Second one was John D.C. Little at MIT on the analytics side, but he has his own company and he did. Jerry Zaltman in the consumer behavior. And again, he has a great practice. He showed most of the concepts that we create can be very relevant. Michael Porter, last year we had Lynn Willendale. You are the next one. And I tell you, it's a personal joy for me to recognize you, not only that, but to celebrate this award. My last comment, I want to thank Sheth Foundation board members. They're world-class scholars, and they are also giving back to the society by serving on this board. I also want to especially recognize people. Tulin Erdem took the responsibility of organizing 2020 Dave Aaker Sheth Medal Award. Laura Hilado, who is the person behind the scenes managing everything, like planner, wedding planner, whatever you would like to call. And Ruth, her leadership is just exceptional. It has transformed Sheth Foundation from where it used to be to the next level of excellence. And the journey has just begun. You will hear more about that one. Above all, I want to thank my own wife. We have been married 57 years. Idea of starting the foundation, she's a co-friend. She has been always unconditional support when it comes to my academic side of the life. And therefore, I do want to acknowledge her continued support. And she is listening to this, I'm sure, but I'm so glad. And my congratulations, Dave, for a very dear friend.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Dunn, and I have had the privilege to work with Dave Aaker closely over the last 20 years as we've worked together with a bunch of amazing people to build Profit. Dave and I are both out here in San Francisco, and through our journey with Profit, we've survived many ups and downs over the years. In the early days, we had like a war of roses between the Aaker model framework and Scott Davis's brand asset management. We had so much fun building Profit Japan, Dave, as well in those early days. with so many like, wow, did that just happen moments in Japan as we were wandering around the country and giving talks and helping clients. And then obviously over the years with our annual Aaker Awards. And I mean, I could go on and on. It's been such a privilege to work with you. But there are a few things that you learn about David Aaker when you work with him this closely, and I'd just like to share a couple of them. One is that he is deeply curious. He's open to new insights and perspective. He's always looking for ways to find and strengthen our understanding of how to build like authentic, compelling brand equity and innovative business models. He's just always open to learning something new. The second thing I'd say is he really speaks his truth. He's never afraid to have a point of view that might land as controversial, either because it's too hard to hear, or it might be something that it's tough for a leader or a brand or a client to change. I've been witness to many deflated looks and facial expressions on CEOs and chief marketing officers' faces as they've listened to Dave's assessment, but he always does it with integrity and heart. The next thing that you see is that Dave Aaker is a rock star in the world of marketing and brand building and business leaders. We had hundreds and hundreds of people would attend these speeches in Korea or California or Japan or Germany. They're always there to listen. They're there with books to sign. I don't know if you remember Arlene Liquido, Dave, from AT&T. She was the first person that I really kind of witnessed up close that had that like infatuated like rock star status, with her thick New Jersey, New York accent, talking to me about David Aaker. She predated the word fangirl. But what I saw in all those people was that Dave really inspired them by enabling them to see a higher purpose in the work that they did. And he always tried to help them. How could they be better? How could they be more How could they be more effective with their work? And then the last thing you learn about working closely with David Aaker is he is just an outstanding human being. He's a person of character, integrity. He lives by his values. He has a strong family and community around him, and I know we'll be hearing from some of them as we continue with this session. Now, Dave also has he's human like the rest of us. He's not always as detail oriented as you'd want him to be. He can be a bit forgetful, like the time he backed the car quickly out of the garage without remembering to raise the door. But that also makes Dave really human and endearing to all of us. But I'd like to close with a final story. It's one of my iconic Dave Aaker stories. I was in Baltimore. I was having a very candid feedback conversation with a woman named Meredith. She worked at a large, well-recognized, asset management firm in the U.S. David worked with the vice chairman and their leadership team a couple years before, earlier in some workshops, to help them envision like a new way forward with their brand. But now we were doing another round of work with them where Dave couldn't be as involved. And we were about halfway through the work. I was asking her for some feedback from her and the vice chairman, in particular around how this new team from Profit was doing a bit, without Dave. And she said that they were relatively pleased with the process to date. And she said the last two sessions had gone well and they were well received. But then she looked down and I could tell she had something really uncomfortable to say. So she took a deep breath. She looks up at me and she sighs and she says, well, I have to tell you, the vice chairman, what he said is, well, Meredith, this is all going okay, but that Michael Dunn is clearly no David Aaker. Now, some people would be discouraged, maybe even despondent after putting so much into something to fall somehow short. But as I reflected back on the feedback, I took it as a positive challenge for the next 2 decades of Profit. How could I bring more curiosity and more candor and more inspiration and more helpfulness and more integrity into everything that I did for clients and as leaders? How could I bring all this, like not just for big companies that were well-resourced, but to smaller community-focused organizations, like the preschool in San Francisco's Panhandle District, or scrappy nonprofits focused on LGBTQ youth or transgender violence. How could I bring a bit more of David Aaker to all these situations? So Dave, that is the gift that I want to thank you for most of all. Congratulations on this amazing award.
Hello, all. My name is Rich Lyons. I'm a colleague of Dave's at UC Berkeley at the Haas School of Business, and I see Dave's face here, and I miss our time together. I think all of us are feeling that as well. There are four quick things I'd love to say about Dave here. The first one is my first office at Berkeley. I'm an economist. I should just be clear up front, okay? Dave isn't. And my first office when I got to Berkeley was right next to Dave's, right? So I'm an assistant professor, and Dave is obviously world known already at that point. And, you know, we spent the first, long time really poking fun at each other's field. And that was an absolute delight, actually, to be connected to somebody who was thinking about the world and seeing the world so differently than I was. As a young academic, I so treasure those times and the laughter that we had in our offices. Number two, I don't think I would be hard pressed to come up with a colleague of mine that I've learned more from. I mean, people listen to me talking these days, and I talk about categories and I talk about subcategories. You know, I think people are thinking, dude, you're an economist. What are you talking about? I talk about stories, you know, the wonderful work that Dave has done with Jennifer. And I talk about emotional appeal. And it's like, what has happened to me, Dave? What has happened to me? So that's number two. You've taught me so much over the years. And what you teach deeply. You've certainly changed my life in many ways. The third one is we did a lot of culture work so Dave's branding, but the branding sort of applied, and Michael and others on this call and in this conference understand this. At Haas, as we tried to sort of brand the school, as we tried to take a stand on culture, a stand that we felt that, you know, wouldn't be a stand that other business schools could take. Some of the work that Dave did for us and Profit, like confidence without attitude. That is a phrase that I remember Dave helped us hammer home. It ultimately became deeply embedded in admissions. It's like no compromises. You are awesome. There's a business school for you, but if confidence without attitude isn't what you're about, then this business school isn't the right business school for you. And Dave helped us see things clearly and take a stand on it. And I just mentioned confidence without attitude as one little piece of that. And then the fourth thing that I want to say is, look, at the end of the day, the reason we're all so connected, or at least I'll speak for myself, I feel so connected to this human being, is his warmth. Dave's warmth is defining of who he is. It spills out all over. That's part of why I started where I started. I just miss my in-person time with Dave. Congratulations to you, and thanks for all that you've done for all of us.
David, you're one of my favorite marketing brands. You've taught us so much about the world of branding, things that in my 1967 book, I believe branding was a paragraph. So you have a gift of many kinds. You've taught us a lot about marketing research. You have a gift for telling wonderful stories. You've helped save Japan by your visits. And I've enjoyed reading your marketing autobiography. And I have it on the shelf standing next to my biography, My Adventures in Marketing. So take care. Love you, Guy. Bye.
Yeah, hi, Kevin Keller here from Dartmouth College. And so just pleased to be able to honor Dave I like to do whenever I can. And it seems like it happens all the time because he is so worthy of so many different honors. And just want to highlight a few things about Dave that I think are noteworthy, and it's from my own personal experiences with working with him from the early days of branding and going to Berkeley in 1985, and when we started doing this. And the thing with Dave, so he's got the Northern California cool with sort of that North Dakota spin, which is sort of an interesting combination. So he's very laid back, and the thing you find, and the thing when I work with him, is that he'd have this sort of way he'd sort of stroke his hair when he's thinking, and you're just trying to like, I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but then he'd come up with these like amazing insights, and that was the thing I can't get over about Dave. So real quick about his breadth, he's so many different areas, but his rigor and relevance. I mean, he really believes in academic thinking and how to apply it and making it relevant, which he would do, in just tackling the most interesting problems. He was so problem driven, and his ability to sort of synthesize things. And the other thing is, and that meant he was very timely, but because of the rigor that he brought, his ideas were so timeless. So he was able to build in this whole series of, and I knew there was going to be a greatest hits book at some point, just like any great artist or musician. He had 6 or 7 great books, but then you put the greatest hits out because he sort of packaged it all together because it all fit together. It all was cumulative, and it all added so much. And just on a personal note, the couple of things I really admire with Dave is he's just tireless, and he just, and he had, incredible instincts in terms of efficiency. His management science training, he could always figure out the best way to get something done, which just meant he could do that much more. So he was amazingly productive. And he was also unbelievably enthusiastic. And so, in academia, there's ups and downs and all this. He was just always so positive about everything that he did. So, that combination of always being there, always contributing, and always just doing it in such just a really sort of positive sort of attitude just made a world of difference. He's done enormous things for the field. I treasure all the time that I was able to spend with him. I was really thankful for that. And I'm thankful for the time I've spent with his family too. So it's an amazing family, and just all that he's done for marketing. It's great to be able to give this, to be able to be part of this award. And I'm ready to do it anytime, Dave. So it's great and congratulations for all that you've done.
Hi, I'm Joe Tripodi. I've had a few chief marketing officer jobs in my career, but I'm honored to speak today. In fact, so honored that I decided to wear a tie. That's the first tie since I've worn since February. But I do have shorts on also to complement that. There's really no more deserving recipient of this award, this Sheth Foundation Medal for exceptional contribution to marketing scholarship and practice than David Aaker. I think that when I read the description, I think the words that jumped off at me were enduring and transformational contributions to marketing scholarship and also marketing practice. And that kind of balances between the two is so critical. And so I can't think of anyone that's more deserving of this. My first exposure with Dave was nearly a quarter century ago, really in 1996, when I was head of marketing at MasterCard. MasterCard was growing rapidly around the world, but we really didn't have any kind of disciplined approach to brand building or brand management, et cetera. And Michael referenced Arneen Linquito. She worked for me for my sins. I had to put up with Arneen, very lively, very loud Italian-American from New Jersey. And she was a piece of work, but she was tremendously passionate about branding and also just loved Dave. And the reality is MasterCard, was owned by the biggest banks in the world, and bankers really didn't understand brands or brand equity and anything. What they really understood was the politics of branding, because as a as an organization that was owned by banks all around the world, they just wanted they didn't care about the consumer. They just cared about protecting their own individual turf where their brand happened to be prominent, even though what we were trying to become was a global payment system and a global acceptance system. So Arneen came to me and said, Joe, we need an expert in branding to come to the board and educate the board. And we said, well, let's go get David Aaker. And so Dave was on a trip in London, and he was supposed to take a flight, and the flight was canceled, calls us in panic. Arneen comes running down the hall to see me and said, Joe, David's flight is canceled. He can't make it. We said, get him on the Concorde. And and she said, well, Dave is hesitant to do that because he doesn't want to charge the company so much. And I said, that's okay. Just get him on the Concorde. He's got to make the meeting. So Dave made the meeting. And so I think, when you bring the guru in to your board meeting, the bankers listen, but they still were tied to their politics of branding. So Dave recommended that we form a subcommittee and really put a lot of the emphasis on them to drive the process and to understand. And that was really smart because we were dealing with issues like, did we want to be a single brand, multi-brand? How do we extend the brand? How do we endorse the brand? How do we ingredient brand? But I think his presence and knowledge at MasterCard at that meeting put the company really on a path of professionally managing the brand. And I have here, Dave, for you. What do you think, Dave? Answer. Here's a quiz for you. What do you think? Here's your invoice dated March 22nd, 1996. What do you think your invoice was for that assignment with MasterCard, Dave? Any idea what the number would be? Prepare the report.
No, I have no idea.
$14,000. Now, given that the market cap of MasterCard is $330 billion today, I would say you probably should have gotten a percent of that. And that would have probably been a pretty nice assignment for you. Anyway, speaking of, he really helped MasterCard professionalize everything. And now it's become one of the world's most valuable brands. And we had the infrastructure in, we had the discipline in, and how to manage it going forward. And speaking of some of the most valuable brands, as you know, for my sins, I also got to manage Coca-Cola as the CMO for 8 years. And after kind of really seeing that, at least with Coca-Cola, a lot of the principles that Dave laid out were really critical in how we thought of branding. And particularly, we did our own manifesto, which we called the Coca-Cola DNA of marketing. And so when you work for the company like MasterCard, everybody thinks they're an expert in marketing, but really what they think marketing is advertising. So we drew heavily on the writings of Dave and the scholarship of Dave to teach the Coca-Cola system that really you had to manage both the brand value side and the brand love side. And without those two working together, you were never going to maximize your brand equity. So that was how we carried his learnings into a completely different environment. And that really, really helped us get everybody at Coca-Cola worldwide focused on that. But I think what impressed me most about Dave's kind of personal journey or story book that he wrote in 2005. So that was at age 67. And, that from Fargo to the world of brands, my story so far. So I think he knew that some of his best work was still ahead of him. I think there's a French philosopher who once said the best arguments in the world won't change a person's mind. The only thing that can change a person's mind is a good story. And so the book that he wrote on creating signature stories was really, I think, a fabulous how-to guide for marketers to help people kind of conceptualize, develop, and execute stories around their brand. Very, very powerful. And then I think the next thing that Dave jumped into and tackled, because he was always, as someone mentioned before, he's always learning and he has a quest for knowledge, is the most recent book on kind of game-changing subcategories. And he really he dove in head first into that kind of complex world of digital and really has contributed enormously to that. So I think this thirst for constant learning and knowledge, and then the ability to apply academia into businesses and many different businesses, unparalleled scholarship and insight. I think it's real, and also the fact that I really considered him a great friend. I've been honored to be able to review a few of his books. And I just wanted to thank him for all his friendship and knowledge over the years, and what he's done for me and marketers everywhere. So congratulations, Dave. This one's for you, okay?
Hello, everybody. My name is Scott Davis. I'm coming to you from Chicago. Dave, I promise I will not tell the iced tea story because I know you've heard that too many times. But I will admit to Michael's story that I have also backed my car out of the garage with the garage door still being closed. So we do share that in common. I wanted to congratulate you on this incredible Chef Foundation Medal Award. I could truly think of no other person who deserves this recognition more, Dave, as your tireless contributions globally to the worlds of business and marketing and brand and academia and research are simply unparalleled. I recently had the absolute pleasure of co-presenting with Dave to a Fortune 100 company just a few months ago in August on the topic of brand relevance, which I know is a shocker to many of you who know Dave that we'd be talking about brand relevance. And the senior executive who was sponsoring this speech is a huge Aaker fan, and he had never met Dave, and he was super nervous to meet him because we had like a waiting room where he was going to be able to talk to Dave before the speech. And he asked me to describe Dave to him. And I, of course, went through all the publicly available stuff that you would expect to hear about Dave, where he's taught and the kind of research he's done and the books that he's written and where he's spoken and the like. But I told the client that if you really want to know Dave, he's a bunch of these paradoxes. He's someone who's both timely and timeless. He's both an academic, but really a true practitioner. He's an intellect, yet he's a wickedly funny storyteller with a truly biting, sarcastic side to him, which he could unleash on you at any moment. So watch out. He's a futurist. He's a pragmatist. He's a scholar. He's a roll up your sleeves, get it done kind of guy. As you heard earlier, he's tirelessly curious about what's next, but he still knows a single point of data from 25 years ago, like he just uncovered it yesterday. He's a fierce competitor, think golf and tennis, yet has one of the biggest hearts I know. And finally, I said to this client, he's worldly, yet he's deeply rooted in Fargo. And finally, I said to this client, if you really want to know the essence of Dave, I'll share with you what one of my clients shared with one of our project teams about a dozen years ago when she was asked to describe Dave. And she had not met him yet. She was about to meet him. She went on to say that Dave is to business and brand what Tom Cruise was to Top Gun. And then she said, Dave is my Tom Cruise. So I don't know if there's any way to top that description, Dave, but and she totally had a brand crush on you. So let's be clear about that. But that's not all I wanted to talk about in honoring Dave today. A little bit more serious. Dave is to me the epitome of that famous Dalai Lama quote. Just as ripples spread out when a single pebble is dropped into water, the actions of a single individual can have far-reaching effects beyond what they could ever imagine. And Dave, to me and to a lot of others, is that pebble. While Dave is widely known as the father of modern branding, he's equally and importantly the father of our company Profit. Dave, you may not know this, but we have employed over 1,500 profiteers since you came into the profit world. You helped to create an industry. You helped launch countless careers. You've helped support and grow countless families. You've helped people who left profit to go on and take some of the biggest and most important jobs in the world. You've helped relationships and friendships get forged that will last a lifetime. And you've helped us through your non-for-profit orientation make an impact in the world, and not just building brands and transforming businesses, but also in moving society. Add all that to the thousands of clients and brands we've had the honor of serving and building, and your pebble becomes a boulder and those ripples become massive waves. And Dave, I know that you know what you mean to me personally, but let me say it again. You gave me legitimacy 20 years ago when you said yes to writing the foreword for my first book. You gave Profit a Chicago office when you invited me and a few others to meet Michael Dunn, who opened the doors of Profit to a number of us. You became a friend, a colleague, a trusted mentor, and a true role model of not just how to continue to make a difference in the business world, but also to do it at the same time while raising an incredible and beautiful family and giving back to the community. Dave, that pebble that you cast all those years ago has changed so many lives and so many destinies. And for that, we're all grateful. And I hope you know that. So thank you, Dave, for being such an inspiration to all of us. Thank you, Dave, for continuing to show us all how to remain relevant time and time again. Thank you, Dave, for continuing to show us all how to live life to its fullest. And really, thank you, Dave, for being my friend for the last 20 years. Congrats.
Hello, I'm Hotaka Katahira, and I'm now in Tokyo. It is 1:30 in midnight, and I'm normally well into bed, but all the exciting speeches, inspired me. Thank you very much. And Dave, congratulations, really. And everything I'd like to say was said by the previous speakers. And probably the only thing I have to say is about Japan. On behalf of Japanese consumers, on behalf of Japanese companies, and on behalf of Japanese brands, I'd like to congratulate you for bringing in the really precious idea of branding to the Japanese practitioners. And thanks to you, we have now the emergence of the relatively good global brands like the Panasonic, Sony, Toyota, Lexus, and Uniqlo. Of course, Dave might not be directly influential to the practice of these brands, but the Dave Aaker's name is really known, and that name made the executive of these companies conscious of the importance of brand building. And I'm respected as a brand guy in Japan, not because I am Hotaka Katahira, but because I know Dave Aaker. Okay. And I owe a lot to Dave's contribution in brand building. Dave is, the innovator in marketing theories. He introduced the idea of, say, silo, the ideas of relevance, the ideas of customer hotspot. I like the idea of customer hotspot very much, and the importance of stories. So as a scholar in brand building, I owe a lot to Dave. And all other speakers emphasized Dave is hungry for information. And even at the sushi bar, Dave likes sushi and eel in Japan and in San Francisco. And even when we enjoy sushi, Hotaka, what do you think about the recent Uniqlo strategies? And what happened to Docomo? What happened to Sony? Sony might not be in a great shape, but why? So, he asks a series of questions, even though we enjoy sushi privately. And so I tell accomplished. And I've been enjoying the stories and the discussions like this in Tokyo and in San Francisco and Berkeley. And it's a pity that Dave stopped coming to Tokyo recently. And I would like to visit Berkeley to restart the discussion on branding. And other guys said, I like Dave as a person. And I like Dave as a person because he likes sports. He loves family, and he's very straightforward. And even straightforward, even in the presence of the chairman, CEO of the current company. And also, he likes eating. And in Japan, we have the saying that those who love eating could never be a bad person. So the only thing I could teach Dave is how to enjoy sushi, how to enjoy Japanese food, and how to find Japanese restaurants smartly. And except for these, I owe a lot to Dave. Thank you, Dave. And thank you for having me here. And congratulations again. Sorry, I'm too long.
Okay, can everyone hear me? I'm gonna give a presentation. My name is Jennifer Aaker, and I wanted to give you a little bit of background insight on why Dave Aaker has been so successful. So to give you a little bit kind of like, behind the scenes insights of Dad that help complement all of the wonderful insights that you guys just shared. But first, let me share with you what, he said to me before I created this talk. He said, Jennifer, your talk should be funny. I mean, you could say something at the end, that's nice, but it should be 90% funny. That should be easy because you just wrote a book on humor. So the bar is low. You can really do this. 90% funny. So that's the goal here. The secrets to a successful life, Dave Aaker style. Perfection is overrated. Ridicule with love. Sharing is caring. Be easily amazed. Marry well. And a bonus sixth tip is laugh easily and generously. So I'd like to give a little bit of insight into each of these sort of principles that I certainly learned when growing up. The first is perfection is overrated. So how is it that he's been so productive, so incredibly pioneering in so many areas? And I think, one thing is just this deep belief that perfection is overrated. I remember sharply growing up, and he said, you are judged on two things in life: the quality of your work and how quickly you can get it done. People overweight quality and they underweight speed. Be fast, just get it done. Just question how high quality does this dress illuminating, and what in order to really the 70s. Those were good times, better times than 2020. But hey, I'm not gonna get distracted. So Dad would just veer out, and he'd just get a little bit too excited about sort of the speed and not the quality of the driving. Another example, like, why would you need to put on your clothes, when you're going to go biking or exercising before you leave? You can just walk and dress at the same time. It's like two things at once. No one thinks to do that. Why not? Or for example, during Thanksgiving every year, our garbage disposal breaks down. And, we can't call a plumber. And so, because it's Thanksgiving. So, I remember this one year that, my dad said, well, I'm an engineer. I went to MIT and I got an engineering degree. So just let me get my work clothes on and I'll go under the hood. So this is Dad in his work clothes. Now you got to get into his mentality. Why would he think about wearing these as work clothes? Well, the mental math is, I could put on worse clothes. I'm just going to get them dirty. They don't have to wash them. And then I just get these dirty. It's faster. I'm saving time. Second, ridicule with love. And of course, self-deprecate. So this is Dad's red Volkswagen Bug. This is what we grew up with. And that's how I learned to drive. And I starkly remember being 15 and a half and driving down Ivy Drive right near our house. And we had this convertible and I was nervous. And so I was going downhill and Dad would go, watch out! It's a first-time driver! Get out of the way! So, he keeps your ego in check. He removes all semblance of truly being embarrassed by your dad, just going straight at it. He would also say things like, that was the worst sentence I've ever read. And it's hard, when you get that kind of feedback, you go like, really? Was that the worst? It's probably not the worst, but when he just ridicules you with extreme exaggeration, somehow it kind of feels not so bad. Or our classic that all of us have heard, that was a really interesting question. I wrote a book on that. Did you read my book? And then, he writes these books and then he leaves them all over your house. We have no fewer than 10 Fargo books at our house. And we can't give them away because they're all subscribed, like not like white out kind of, inscriptions. It's like long writing. We end our humor serious business class. Dad's right. We teach this class on humor at Stanford, and then we have this new book out, and we end that class with a quote from Bill Murray that I think really captures why Dad, why he does this, why he ridicules with love. Bill Murray said, "Stay at it, but stay light. Don't be afraid to do what comes naturally. Fight the urge to be serious. Don't let it destroy the very thing that makes you." And I think that's what Dad does. He's just able to, be able to keep it light for himself and others. All right, the third tip is sharing is caring. When you give to others, and everyone has said this today, he's so generous. They give to you, and that creates a cycle that becomes infectious. So we've seen his impact on our field. I just like to point out this picture of Michael and Dad. These are slogans or sayings that he says all the time. So this is clearly like 2 decades ago. Didn't you read my book? He said it even then. Oh my gosh. And then we've got Taya Sloan, who's grew up and was able to learn from Dad's sharing and presence, whether it's reading or cribbage. I asked a bunch of our family members for Dave Aakerisms. So here's a couple of them. Devin, my son, says, "Remember our deal. We go 50-50 on Halloween candy." So Dad would, I'm not going to go over all of these, but just a few Dave Aakerisms. Cooper, his number one Dave Aakerism is also, "You remember our deal, right? We share the candy." So there's something like really, clever about Dad's way of saying he poses a question and then he reminds people to share. It even goes so far as like if you're eating something, your own food, he'll, reach over and start to share it because everything's communal. Fourth, be easily amazed. And one tip he has is to lower your expectations. So your classic model of happiness is you have expectations and your reality. And if there's a gap, that impacts your happiness. Well, what Dad does is he lowers expectations a lot, for other people, for events, other things. So, one example is growing up, we would play these tennis tournaments. And so I remember vividly, we'd be playing mixed doubles and I would serve, and it was a fine serve. It wasn't an impressive serve. And every now and then he would, if the other person missed, he would drop his racket and just go. That was amazing. It was a normal serve. If you lower your expectations of others and things in life, you can be easily amazed as well. A few other Dave Aakerisms. This is from Jolene and Jan. Nicole, who's his fourth daughter, and then Taya. I'm just highlighting a few. Joe's top one was, "You're just awesome." He used to tell Jan, "We've escaped death once again," like if they're going to go on some skiing adventure. Nicole's here. Taya's here. By the way, Dad, I don't remember you ever saying that about me, but it's fine. No problem. And we can all attest, marry well is one of his key principles. And take adventures and savor traditions. And so Mom and Dad have just done that in such spades. They're an inspiration, not just to Andy and I, but our whole family and all of our friends. And last is laugh easily and generously. It makes people feel seen and it adds years to your life. So in this sort of depiction of what really drives happiness, humor is one of the things that matters more than you think, and it's so simple to do. But here's the problem. We have data from Gallup that shows the answer to the simple question, did you smile or laugh yesterday? Starts out pretty high around 16, 18, 20, and then plummets around 23, 24, right when we go to work. We stop laughing and we don't start again until we're like 80. So that's like 57, 2 serious years. We call these the oh shit years. But not for my dad, you know, and he's defied it in so many ways. As you guys know, Dad is Norwegian. So it's helpful to cite a large-scale Norwegian study at this point. It was a longitudinal study which found that individuals who said they had a sense of humor, they had a 30% better chance of survival if severe disease strikes. And they live 8 years longer. And those are high-quality, laughter-filled years. Dad laughs easily and he laughs generously. Not only that, but in another study, couples who were asked to recall moments when they laughed together versus simply recall happy moments reported to be 23% more satisfied in their relationship. That's just recalling stories of laughter. That joint laughter really has defined them too. This is Dad getting into a boat. You know, some people like get in delicately. Other people roll into the boat. Bill Murray also was once said to say, those who appreciate the power of humor are those who find meaning in their lives. And I cannot identify anyone who has more meaning in their life and work than my dad. I love you.
Thanks, Jay. This has really been a ton of fun. I think we should do this a couple times a year. I'd really be up for it. And I should say that Jag has been a long-term friend and inspiration. I've always been so impressed with. He provided the whole foundation of our consumer behavior with his famous Howard Sheth book and model. And then he went on and did all these talks around the world with his 2x2 matrices. I always thought, how does he do that? How does he get the energy? How does he get a new matrix? So anyway, it's a pleasure to be associated with you, Jag, in every way. I always enjoy our time together. And these people that talk today, that all that talent, all that support, all that inspiration, all that friendship, everyone has been such a part of my career. And in fact, probably the best part is these kinds of people that I've been surrounded with. It's very proud to have known them. And a little bit like Hotaka, that I can say I know Rich, I know Joe, I know Kevin, and so on. And that's part of what I'm most proud of. I just thought just take a minute and talk about how I got into branding in the first place. I came out of graduate school as a quant guy, statistician, a model builder. And but during my first part of my career, I really started going all over the map. I was ill-defined. I was undisciplined. I was opportunistic. I would do when there's look for what data's handy, what co-author I like to work with at the time, what caught my eye. And also I was a closet consumer behavior guy. Jag doesn't know this, but I really like consumer behavior. And so I was drawn to those kinds of things. You know, my 3 heavily cited articles in that first couple decades of my career, one was with George Day on consumer protection. Another was Doug Stamen on experimental exploration of the emotion warmth. That was so not brand. It was so off-brand. I wrote a book on advertising, another one strategy, so off-brand. So I was really, really ill-defined until branding came along in the late 1980s. And it was really, I got there because I was in my strategy work. I got to believe that short-term financials were too prominent. and that companies needed to learn to build assets. But what asset should I focus on? And of course, the answer was branding. And there was three things that led me there. One, I did a study. We asked 250 executives what was their sustainable competitive advantage. We got a list of over 40, and the number one was perceived quality. Number three was brand recognition, and number 10 was brand loyalty. So 3 of the top 10 were around brand. And secondly, it became apparent that all this, all over the map stuff I've been doing, the stuff on advertising, the stuff on strategy, could be applied to brand building that as an asset. And then a third, and I distinctly remember sitting next to Kevin Keller at an MSI meeting on brand equity. MSI had elevated brand equity as a research priority for the first time ever. And Kevin and I were sitting there. We were talking about our brand extension research that we had done. And I don't know if it was that moment, but it was around there that I decided that I would be a branding guy. So I wrote the first book, Managing Brand Equity, where I defined brand equity, and I included customer loyalty in the definition because I thought that made sense. But it turned out that was really influenced the way people approach brands, approach marketing, and indeed approach business. Because if you put the customer experience and brand loyalty on the table, that affects a lot of what you do. And I also talked about how brand loyalty provides value to the business and value to the customer. And when CMOs like Joe were fighting to get budget for people that were others that were focused on short-term financials, that was really handy to know exactly the 25 or 30 ways that brand equity provided value to a business. And then I wrote the Building Strong Brands and had the brand identity model that had really two principles. It said brand is not a 3-word phrase, as all the agencies had been assuming. It was multidimensional. It had 6, 8, 12 dimensions to it. And second of all, these dimensions were not pre-specified. It was not a check-the-box model. You developed the dimensions that were appropriate to your context. And so those were the principles. And then I wrote a book on brand portfolio, the fact that brands are families. You've got to look for synergy. You got to look for clarity. You got to look for leverage. And you got to figure out what the roles are of each brand and manage toward those roles. And so those 3 books were followed by the others that Joe outlined. And actually, Joe is just terrific. I kid Michael Dunn. I say, if only the people in profit could read my books like people like Joe do, I'd be so pleased. But anyway, those books all kind of in one way or the other applied brands and brand building to important problems that marketing have faced. And the brand lens, I think, is really a good way of looking at things. So branding is my home, and I really enjoy it there. It's stimulating, it's not confining, and it's just fascinating to get into how you position a category or position a brand, how you get energy, how you get visibility, how do you use a brand to turn around a business. And so I found my home, and I love it. And again, thanks a lot, Jag, and for all you've done for marketing, all you've done for academic marketing. It's such a treasure to your support for the consortium and all the other things. And it's an honor to be associated with the Sheth Foundation.